Jimmy Page isn't just a guitarist, he's a force of nature, loose, unpredictable, sometimes messy, sometimes transcendent. And that raises a serious question. What happens when you take a player like Kanami Tōno, precise, composed, almost orchestral in her thinking, and run her through the Jimmy Page guitar test? Does she pass? Or does the difference in philosophy break the spell? Well, let's find out. The Jimmy Page test is not about technical perfection. It's about three things. Controlled chaos. Can the guitarist ride the edge of losing control without actually losing it? Riff authority. Does every riff feel like it's carving out the identity of the song? Mythic presence. Does the playing feel larger than the player, like something channeled rather than constructed? Page never played like a machine. He played like a storm. So the real question is, can Kanami, who is very much not a storm, still tap into that energy? Kanami Tōno plays like a composer first and a guitarist second. Her instincts are structured, intentional, harmonically rich, rhythmically disciplined. Where Page leans into instability, Kanami eliminates it altogether. Where Page lets notes hang dangerously, Kanami resolves them with purpose. So right away, there's a bit of tension between the two. Kanami doesn't naturally live in Jimmy Page's world. That doesn't mean she can't visit it. Page's riffs are raw and declarative. They feel like they were discovered. Kanami's riffs are engineered, layered, interlocking. But here's the key insight. Kanami absolutely does have riff authority. When she locks into a groove, the band orbits her. The difference is, Page dominates through looseness, Kanami dominates through control. So the verdict on riffs is a pass, although with a different philosophy. The chaos test is where things get really interesting. Page's greatness often lives in imperfection. Slight timing shifts, notes that almost fall apart, phrases that feel improvised on the edge. Kanami doesn't do that. She builds safety nets into her playing. Even her fastest runs feel mapped out. So, does she fail here? Well, not exactly, because Kanami replaces chaos with something else. Momentum. Instead of sounding unpredictable, she sounds inevitable. Different emotional effect, but still powerful. Verdict on chaos is a partial pass, but transformed into precision-driven momentum. Now, the final test, the solo test. Page's solos feel like storytelling in real time. They breathe, they stretch, they sometimes wander, and then snap back to brilliance. Kanami's solos are thematic, structured, built around escalation. She doesn't wander, she builds arcs. So the question becomes, does she feel like she's discovering the solo as she plays it, or executing something already known? Most of the time, it's the second, and that's where she diverges most from Jimmy Page, but her phrasing still carries a ton of emotional weight. She just delivers it with clarity instead of reckless abandon. So the verdict on the solos is a total pass, but based on a lower risk factor. The hardest part to identify and quantify about Page's playing is the mythic factor. Page feels mythological because you never know quite what he's going to do. Kanami also feels mythological, but for a different reason. You feel like she knows exactly what she's doing at all times. She's not a wild force, but an architect. And in a modern band context, that level of control can feel just as powerful as chaos once did. So, in terms of mythic presence, Kanami has mystique, although maybe not at the same level of mastery as Jimmy Page. Does Kanami Tōno pass the Jimmy Page test? Yes, but not by becoming Jimmy Page or even by becoming like Jimmy Page. She passes by replacing chaos with control, replacing looseness with structure, replacing unpredictability with precision. She doesn't imitate the storm, she redirects it. Now, if you want to see something really interesting, I did a full deep dive for members called When Jimmy Page Met Band-Maid, and this is when two mythic forces came together. That video goes way further than this one in terms of a potential relationship between Jimmy Page and the band, and also between Jimmy Page and the musicality of Band-Maid. Now, Kanami Tōno is not the same kind of guitarist as Jimmy Page. She is not as chaotic, she's not as improvisational, but she's definitely just as mythical and just as powerful. So let me know what you think about these comparisons down in the comments below.
Jimmy Page almost never talks about modern rock bands. He doesn't endorse them, he doesn't anoint them as the future. And he definitely doesn't show up to hype them. So when Jimmy Page quietly took notice of Band-Maid in Tokyo in 2016, it wasn't